Yo, 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 what is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to Avery Sports Show, talking some rugby league with one of the best media voices for the game to discuss rugby league. It could be NRL, it could be the local competitions going on in Florida, Vegas, California, Utah, you name it, he's on it. It's Dustin Zerrer from Rugby League in America. And as you saw the news, I am now officially a part of the company website and podcast. Dustin, welcome to Avery Sports Show. How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, man? Oh, it's a weird turnabout play here because usually it's me interviewing you on our show, and this is just weird. I don't even know I don't have to do an intro. I didn't prepare anything for this except for my own knowledge of the sport. So, yeah, we're super excited to announce that you're joining us as a contributor. I mean, obviously, we can't take away from the amazing show that you've been running for years, but just to have you as a part of what we've been doing. I mean, obviously, your background with the Wolfpack all the way to
Yes.
Super League and stuff, and yeah, the multiple times that we've had hour-long conversations on the podcast for Rugby League in America. It's good to have you joining us. So we're excited for it for sure.
No, of course. I love the fact that we're now seeing more and more this contingent of North American people talking rugby league, interested in the game. Because I remember Dustin, when I first started covering the Wolfpack and having an interest in NRL and Super League, it was tough to find people who cared about rugby league outside of just the diehards and really who knew what it was. Fast forward some 6, 7 years later, and there's now a proper ecosystem of people who are really paying attention to sport more so than just on the fringes of what used to be sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a growing, right? And everybody's like, oh, wait, America. I'll include the Americas, right? We're Rugby League in the
Right?
Americas, North and South. Like, it's growing. We just had to nudge it along a little bit, right? Like we had to, you know, those like yourself and Michael Carboni who, did Chasing Kangaroos. I mean, he technically still does it, but he doesn't do it as much. Maybe we'll convince him to come back soon. And then Nate Gladden doing Rugby League in
Yeah.
America. Like, you guys have been there since the beginning. I've been lucky enough to be brought on as Nate kind of stepped aside. So, I just hope to carry on and keep doing those things. I don't know about one of the best voices in the game. That's a bold statement. I don't think my voice is that silky smooth. So
Hey, you're easily one of the more knowledgeable. Hey, I mean that because you've been out here talking about different competitions across the Americas, South America, Canadian competitions. It's tough. The way sports media in in both countries has been shrinking due to cutbacks, due to layoffs. The fact that this podcast, the website, found a way to give exposure to these athletes and to these teams, and to these different rugby leagues is amazing.
yeah, I think right now we see this. Yeah, rugby league, and we're at a crossroads, and
Mm,
like it's an interesting spot. Like we're in the U.S. and Canada, we're growing, right? So you've got
yeah.
three teams in Ontario. You've got women's team in Canada who just
Hmm.
did the World Cup, and you've got the people out in the RLBC who are doing great things, and the reemergence of the Wolfpack in the form that it is now. It's growing there. It's growing in the U.S. This past year we had 16 teams, yeah, almost 16, 17 teams across the country playing active rugby league. However, there's no coverage of it. It's hard, as you know, it's hard to follow
Hmm.
along. It's hard to, you know, I can tell you how many times I've watched games that are filmed on iPhones from the sideline and wanted to strangle the people that are filming it. Going, come on, guys, like just a little bit will go a long way. So, I kind of hope that Rugby League in America and, in your show and other people that in Carbs and Chasing Kangaroos, as we try to cover it as much as possible, that this is that outlet for people that they can say, oh yeah, I can go, track and see who's winning in the RLBC because
Hmm.
everybody does this on their own time, and you kind of get some volunteers to do it. If you don't update a website or scores or upload a video, you miss out a lot. Hey, we're guilty of it too. Like there are
Yeah.
plenty of times where I've missed uploading stuff or submitting scores on our own website that covers all the scores across the globe. So anyway,
Yeah,
we'll
no,
work on that.
no, exactly. It's a work in progress with the fact that yeah, we're covering competitions in NBC, Ontario, and across America and across different continents. It's amazing to see. And I want to ask you, I gotta ask, of course, we know in this part of the world, rugby union is the dominant code for rugby. So I do want to ask, Dustin, how did you get involved in rugby league? What was your background story in getting interested in rugby league?
All right, so here I was, a spry young uh I don't even know how young I was, but I was young, younger than I am now, that's for sure. 2001, on a late night, uh, bender is a bad word to say, but we were drinking a lot in college. So we were in college sitting down drinking, and we just happened. I mean, it was probably 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and the grand final was on. NRL grand final 2001, and the Eels played the Knights. We knew nothing about it. At that point, we realized, I mean, 2001, like I knew about rugby
Mm,
union because I actually played in high school with the local college my senior year, just because I wanted something to do outside of American football, which is what I played. And, so got into rugby. We said, it's rugby. And we all kind of like watch it, like, it looks a lot like football, though. It's like, oh, yeah, 6 tackles, and they're kicking it away like they punt. So we kind of made this connection. And so we just started cheering for, you know, half the people were cheering for the Knights, half the people were cheering from the Eels. That we can, that everybody remembers because, it's probably 5 o'clock in the morning. We've been drinking a
right.
while. Uh, this one's like, we can make it to the morning until Hardee's opens. So I just started following it. And that's where I kind of fell in love with the game and with the sport. Obviously it's hard to follow here in the US, especially
Mm,
from 2001 all the way up to even past like 5 years,
yeah.
because of broadcasts. Like it's on early in the morning. Super League, it's hard to access it. You got to pay for special channels. But I really just fell in love with the sport. Fell in love with the Eels, even though they lost. And yeah, so that's just one of those other things. Like it's like, oh, you picked the losing team. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Like, and I started off cheering for the Eels at the beginning because I like the colors or something. I don't know. And now I'm an Eels fan and continually suffer through losing championships all the time.
It's funny. I've heard more than one person over the years tell me like that's how they found either NRL or Super League, stumbling
Yeah.
across it and literally realizing that connotation of, oh, it's like football, seeing the 6 tackles, seeing a faster game. That was really what the connection was to how people who stumbled across or came across or fell in love with rugby league in different parts of this region. And of course, we know that NRL is making waves now in North America and in the US specifically. They're going to be playing 2 games in March. 4 teams are coming over to North America to Vegas. Manly, South Sydney, Brisbane, and the Sydney Roosters are going to have games here at Allegiant Stadium with the Raiders home field. And it's really the NRL's first proper attempt at truly diving into the American market. We saw players were at the terrible Raiders Vikings game. We saw that.
Voted the worst game in history, by the way. The worst game in history. However, if they went back 4 days after that to the Thursday night game, the Raiders scored 63 points and it was one of the highest scoring games in history.
Right. It's too bad Fox didn't have that game, or else that would have been perfect to bring NRL to. Like,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, that's
I,
but before we talked before about how NRL has struggled at times to properly promote the game towards Americans, get Americans involved. And I'll say full credit. You had NRL players and teams featured on American broadcast on Fox Sports here. You're starting the proper synergy. But one thing I find silly, Dustin, is that even with that, there are still detractors saying, oh, tell them it's rugby league, not rugby. It's like, come on. Are we really going to? We should be glad that there is NRL content on an NFL Fox broadcast. And again, Americans, Canadians, we don't care about the Code Wars. We don't care.
yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's always fun to watch, to read comments, whether it's on our posts or whether it's on other people's posts, and it's like, oh my God, like, listen, we can talk about all we want, and being the home of Major League Rugby for union in the
Yes.
U.S. and having that, one thing that they've never been able to do is crack the NFL partnership opportunities, right? It's always been against the NFL. It's always been against
Hmm.
everybody else. It's like, oh, and still the NRL to this for so far has been, no pads, no helmets, no fear. Like, okay, we're over that. Like, don't do that. Like, we've done that. We've tried. The NFL doesn't care about that. Fans don't care about that. They just want to see fast-paced action, big hits, big runs. Doesn't matter about pads and stuff. Like, don't play that card. So I think from that standpoint, like, people are excited.
Hmm.
There's always going to be naysayers. Like, it's
Yeah.
rugby league. Like, what would we be if we didn't have naysayers who are like, oh yeah, it's terrible. Like, mostly it's going to be Australians who are saying how bad it's going to be over there. They've got 20,000 tickets sold so far. I mean, we got 3 months to go, 2.5 months to go. And I think from the standpoint of, as we look at it, look back and I said, what's going to be successful? I said, being a 30,000, I consider it a success. That's, you sell out half of the Death Star. That's not too bad. 30,000 to watch an NRL game in the US. Yeah, I think it goes over pretty well.
No, that's not too bad at all. I saw there are reports also too coming out from Steve Mascord that is also going to be not confirmed, not entirely confirmed yet. There's going to be a USA Canada test match before in Vegas, and the fact that I like the fact that we're also going to get involved international teams taking part. And it isn't just going to be NRL teams. I think it's vital that you get the international teams, both US and Canada, involved, giving them bigger exposure and bigger platform to showcase their programs as well.
I know it's like 98% confirmed. There's like last
Okay.
couple things that are supposed to be, but hey, like go breaking news here. Yeah, so USA Canada on Friday night, and then the curtain raiser for that match is going to be the Masters. So Canadian, US, Australia Masters, and maybe an England Masters team. Like they're going to play each other. And of course, you have the nines tournament that's going on before that on Thursday and Friday,
Yes.
leading up to it. So there's a lot of opportunity for exposure. Um, you know, I, we have to be realists. Like a lot of Australians aren't going to come and go watch a nines tournament when they're in Vegas. They're going to go party and go to
Yeah.
shows and stuff, and that's fine. I think the point of it is how many Americans can we get in there? How many of our advocates of rugby
Hmm.
league that exist and play for the different teams around the country, can we get every single team to send a nines team to Vegas? There's opportunity. There's $20,000 in the pot for men's and women's competitions for the winners for first, second, third, I believe.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I know one thing with this event was that the big discussion point was NRL is trying to make this more about a gambling thing. And sure, that can be one aspect. But I think if you're going to want to make this a success, you've got to build around more than that. You really got to get Americans knowing like what is NRL because people aren't going to gamble on things they don't really know. You've got to educate the people on what this is. So I think for next 3 months, NRL is going to have to go really hard in explaining, for example, like who is a James Tedesco, who is Latrell Mitchell, like who are these people if you want to get Americans spending your money on this sport?
Right. And I think that goes back to maybe a little bit of who they sent over to start off with. They didn't
Mhm.
send the biggest superstars, right? Let's be honest. Like, but I think it's getting them involved with like who are the best, or who are the top players, who are the most exciting players, who are the most, Reese Walsh, most of the most
Yeah.
energetic players in the game, but also what, when we bet, when Australians and others bet in Australia on the game, what are they betting on? And how do you educate? If you want to get that betting, you've got to teach, as you said, you've got to teach Americans what the game is and then how they can bet in the game. Like first to score a try, first to score
Yeah.
whatever, first to do anything, right? First to, first to turn the ball over via knock on, right? I don't know if that's even a thing, but so people have to understand it too. Will Americans go out and bet to start off with? Nah, not the first year. I don't think so. I think year two, year three, you'll start to see an increase. Probably there's more interest, but I think in the first year you're not going to see any. I mean, you'll see minimal revenue from any gambling that happens on that.
It's going to take time for gambling to really be a thing in which Americans know about it, understand it fully. I saw a report here that now the NRL wants this to be a multi-year thing, which is good. It's not. It can't just be a one-off thing and never return to it. Because I saw that the New Zealand Warriors they want to be a part of the 2025 game. I think that's great that you're now having more
Love that.
teams stepping up and saying, "Yeah, we want to be a part of this next year and going forward." If this becomes a yearly thing, part of the NRL calendar, much in the same way that State of Origin is and other events are, I think that's how you properly build an audience overseas.
I think so. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things is, how do you plan strategically to,
Mhm.
for that long term, right?
Yeah.
You can't just do it one off. You've got to plan, a 2, 3, 5 year plan and to build those people out. Like it's going to take time. Like it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen instantly. Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so just going from on that standpoint, what is that long-term strategy, right? So the Warriors came out and said that they're going to actually be, they're interested in 20. That's exciting. I love that. I can't wait to see all the New Zealand fans come out like that. They have such a great following. So not that the other teams don't, but I just think it's a whole different level when there's one New Zealand team and
Right.
versus all the Australian teams. So we'll see what happens, right? I think it's going to take involvement. It's going to have to take engagement outside of just having this one game on at 6 o'clock at night, you know, on FS1. Like I don't know what it is in Canada, but FS1 here in the US. And so can we get it on another on mid-afternoon games, like earlier games in the day in Australia, so that in the evening we can watch it here, or in different time zones we can watch it,
Mhm.
you know, at a more acceptable time. I mean, it's still going to be on at 8 o'clock at night on the East Coast, and the second game is going to be on at 10:30 at
Yeah.
night on the East Coast, which is getting pretty late. Granted, it's not an NFL game, so it'll be over by, before midnight, whereas an NFL game would be at 1 o'clock in the morning before it's over.
Exactly. And yeah, so Sportsnet up here has the rights to NRL and Super League has the
Okay.
rights up here. So yeah, that's where you can find games on. But yeah, same thing too. Like it's tough in Canada because the games kick off in the West Coast. And say if you're in Vancouver and Edmonton at 2, 3 in the morning, if you're lucky to be in, say, for example, if you're lucky to be in, say, like a Toronto or a Montreal, it's not as bad. I mean, it's still tough because it's like 5, 6 a.m. That's still hard if you're in the East Coast of Canada. But like, yeah, these
Yeah.
games are going to be somewhat better because it's in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we talk
Yeah.
about we talk about growth in the game, Dustin. I always see people debating how it should be. Should it be done? Should it be done at all? And I think to myself, like the growth of rugby league, like we got a template here from how the Toronto Wolfpack did their thing, which for the most part should be followed. And I thought it was so silly when we saw people bashing what they were doing from different parts of the rugby league world. They were able to get their players out throwing the first pitch MLB games. Like, that is what the sport needed more and more. Like, how they got North Americans interested in rugby league is something that both Super League and NRL need to take full advantage of.
You saw it happen with the NRL already this
Yeah.
year. I mean, with the Raiders, the Rams, they've already the
Mm-hmm.
Rams, the Utah Jazz,
Yeah.
everybody else that they've tried to partner with, like they're just trying to get out there.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that the Wolfpack did really well, that back in the day. I think Super League, we see what's happening with Super League right now, and they're not exactly doing well financially. Of
No.
course, no rugby entity really is doing well financially. NRL just kind of stands alone. Maybe French rugby union does well, but other than that, like for everybody else, I mean, it's hard. And so why not take what the NRL is doing and work it into Super League at that particular point? Right.
Yeah.
So like obviously the NRL is doing something right.
I don't understand how people could ever be against. Like, I mean, I'm glad to see NRL teams doing it now, which yeah, they're partnering with the Rams, but done with the Raiders. Like, I think to an extent, there's still a level of people are afraid of the outsiders coming to the sport. Like, for example, NRL is planning on holding a combine to
Mhm.
scout possible potential American athletes. And we talk about maybe you find a couple of players, maybe you don't. But when the NRL is always discussing expansion,
Mhm.
a possible second New Zealand team, a possible team in Papua New Guinea. You're going to need to find more and more talent. I'm not against the idea of having a combine to try and find what you could possibly pull up in North America.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things where you're going to find that people who reach out, people who are, involved and want to see it grow, like they will, and those players, they're there. I tell everybody that I think the most interesting and the quickest path to that the US to playing in Australia is
Mm.
actually NRLW. I think we have American
Mm.
women who are going to go
Yes.
and just go lights out. So I'm thinking the women's game will grow faster here than the men's game will from the player movement pathway. So that's my thought at least.
No, I agree. And NRW, I'm seeing that league expand more and more and more. And I
Oh
agree.
yeah,
There've been American players, there've been Canadian players who've been a part of NRLW. Like I think the way that is running, because it was a 14 competition not too long ago. And now we're seeing what it's about 10 or 11 teams. Like that
yeah,
is
something like that.
yeah, like it won't be too long before we get an NRLW team for every NRL team, which I think would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, that'll probably happen within the next 2 years, I'd assume.
It's growing, it's amazing. And before I let you go, Dustin, just want to ask you about what has it been like from your end to see guys like Rob Gronkowski and Mark Sanchez being a part of this or trying, making an honest attempt to try and understand NRL and try and get it because I think that's going to be a big thing. Is you're going to need we mentioned partnerships. We're going to need figures like these
Yeah.
guys along with NRL players pushing why you should come out and watch. And yeah, they're gonna mess up. They're gonna understand everything. But if you got like a Rob Gronkowski, if you got other NFL active players, retired players saying, "Come watching," to help in a major way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's going to
Hmm.
be you need to have that, right? We talk like we make fun of Mark Sanchez because it was
With
awful.
old man video.
It was yeah, my comment. This is what happens when you give if you haven't seen it, go into the Rugby League in America's Instagram page, and it was a video of this is what happens when you give an old man Facebook Live for the first time and let him go to town. It was really bad. But Gronk, like that was a great video. I mean, it wasn't anything that was he just was spiking the ball doing the Gronk spike, but and of course people are like, oh, that's a knock on. Like it's more the fact that they were on NFL
Hmm.
Sunday. I don't know if
Yes.
it was actually on because I didn't watch it, so I didn't know if it was actually on live for everybody to see that. I still can't get confirmation. I think it was after the recording or in between, games or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or but yeah, I think you need to have that, right? You're going to have your Russell Crowe's, who's going to be his supporting the Rabbitohs, which
Hmm.
found out that they said that he's actually not going to be able to go to the game because he's doing a movie and like
Oh,
yeah in Burma or something like that. So
okay.
he won't be at the game, which is funny. Um, and then like your Manly supporters like Hugh Jackman and stuff
Hmm.
you need more than that. You need American supporters who are getting behind it. So I think we'll see it. It'll take some time, but I think after year one, year two, I mean, listen, you've partnered with the UFC, which the UFC doesn't partner with any sports
No.
entity. NFL, NBA, they kind of do some cross promotional stuff from time to time, but you know, can we see these advertisements actually running during football games to draw people in? That's the big thing. I think if we see that, then we'll start pulling people in. If they want to run it in Vegas, that's great. But I think they need to do it on a wider scale soon too. Maybe it'll happen. Super Bowl ad
Hey, why not? Hey,
because it's
I,
$3 million. That's why.
if they can find if they can find a way to make it work, maybe if they can find the money to make that happen. Hey,
And do it.
you're bringing over four teams to Vegas. That's not cheap. I'm
Oh no,
sure you
it's
can
going to
find a
cost a lot of
way.
money.
I'm sure you can find a way to somehow get a NRL ad come Super Bowl for a game that's
Yeah,
gonna be played in Las Vegas,
right. 2 weeks before,
right?
3 weeks before, something like that. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Anyways, Dustin, it's been a blast having you on Avery's
awesome, man.
Sports Show. And of course, we'll be doing some more stuff Rugby League in America. We'll be doing some more stuff coming forward. So, anyways, I can't wait, Dustin, to do some more work
Big
with you.
plans in the works. Big plans in the works.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it, Avery.